Shazam Fury of the Gods is now out playing in theaters. Shazam and his Shazam family must fight against a new threat of villains who threaten to steal their powers and take over the world. All the classic superhero stuff. I actually really like the first Shazam that came out in 2019. I thought it was a lot of fun, had a lot of charm, and was actually pretty clever. So when the trailers started coming out for Shazam Fury of the Gods, and I wasn't really feeling that excited about it, I found it a little bit odd. They were clearly going for a bigger budget and bigger action, but there was still an underwhelming feeling that came attached to them. And unfortunately, that's kind of how I felt after seeing the entire movie play out as well. So let's start with the positives first, and I wasn't expecting to say this, but Jack Dylan Grazer's character of Freddy was actually the parts of the movie that I enjoyed the most. A lot of this movie actually focuses on the character of Freddy. He has a subplot that goes on with Rachel Zegler's new character and the wizard from the first movie, and any time that the movie went over to check in on them, I felt like that's when it was clicking and working the most for me. Jack Dylan Grazer is an awesome young actor, so I don't know if they were just writing for him better or if he has like great improvisation skills. A lot of the chuckles and laughs that I got in this movie actually came from him and from what he was doing in the movie. Helen Mirren and Lucy Liu are our new villains in this movie, which on paper I thought sounded a little odd when I first heard it. But I've got to hand it to them. They did a really good job. The script provided some material for them that was actually pretty frightening. While it doesn't get as dark as I would say the boardroom scene in the first film with the 7 deadly sins, there are still a couple of disturbing scenes and moments that they get to have as villains that I thought were very effective to actually bring the threat that they actually were across and show the danger that they could be to Shazam and his family. And yeah, the action in this thing, it's fun, and they utilize a lot of the magic that this world inhabits, like dragons and monsters. When they're on screen, they're pretty cool. When the action's going on, I was pretty entertained. But with that said, I actually don't know if going bigger with this sequel was actually a good decision, because in doing so, I felt like the movie lost a lot of the charm and some of the identity that it had in the first film. The first movie was more or less inspired by Tom Hanks' Big, or at least there was a lot of ideas in that movie that you could see were pulled from the movie Big. So in a way, the first film kind of had this blueprint that they could follow in telling Shazam's origin story. And watching this 12 to 13-year-old kid acting like a 12 to 13-year-old kid when he was in this adult body as Shazam in the first film was a lot of fun, and I felt like Zachary Levi perfectly encapsulated the character in that film. But that movie was also 4 years ago, and in Shazam Fury of the Gods, they address that it is 4 years later. Billy is closer to the age of 18 now than he was to the age of 12. And because of this, the way that they wrote Shazam in this movie, there was a real disconnect between Billy and Shazam for me this time around. We see very little of Billy, portrayed by Asher Angel, in this movie, but when we do see him, he kind of comes across as a mature young man. He's definitely grown since we last saw him in the first film as a kid. Zachary Levi as Shazam, however, felt very inconsistent and kind of all over the place to me in his performance this time around. I don't know if it was the writing necessarily or just his performance. I honestly think it was both. But there are times when Shazam does act kind of serious and does want to be this serious leader to the rest of his Shazam family. There's times where he acts super goofy. There are times where he acts like he's an excited 10-year-old as opposed to how a 17-year-old would act. There are times where he's smart. There are times where he's super dumb. There's even times where he can't even read. And for me, the charm that Zachary Levi brought to the character portraying this adult Shazam superhero as this excited 12-year-old, 13-year-old kid in the first film did not work as well in the sequel. Lack of better word, the character just felt very unfocused to me. And it also doesn't help very much that he's now part of an ensemble of characters with the Shazam family, made up of his foster siblings that we saw in the first film. And the first film and the second film, I don't feel like they gave enough time for these characters to really develop, because I didn't really feel much attachment to the Shazam family. I love them in concept, but there are times where I'm watching the Shazam family on screen, and there's 2 to 3 of them that sometimes when they're on screen, I honestly couldn't tell you who they were, which kids were which Shazam family member. Sometimes it gets very confusing. And the story also wasn't all that engaging to me. I felt like a lot of the threat, danger, and stakes that were in this movie were very muddled in their execution. There were definitely a lot of elements in this story that I found pretty predictable, and while predictability isn't always a bad thing, the humor didn't necessarily carry this movie much for me either. The humor just felt a little bit more predictable and flat to me than it did in the first film. There's nothing like in the first film when Shazam and the bad guy are in the air and they're talking to each other, yelling at each other across the city, but they can't hear one another. That was really smart. I thought that was really clever for the time when that film came out. There's nothing that feels like that with the humor in this film to me. Shazam! Fury of the Gods is not a bad movie, though. I won't go as far to say that it's a bad movie. There's definitely things in this movie that are entertaining, that are fun, that I know that a lot of the issues that I have with this movie are not going to be for the large majority of people. Because Zachary Levi, he's still fun. He's still entertaining to watch in the role. As far as the big budget superhero aspect of this movie goes, there is some fun to be had with the action, with the fight sequences, with the monsters. Like I said, there is some humor that did work. I did get some chuckles. I did get some laughs, especially from Jack Dylan Grazer's character. But compared to the first film, I felt like it lost its charm, and this one felt very disposable to me. I'm honestly totally okay if I don't see Shazam! Fury of the Gods again. But I'll still give the film a generous, weak recommend. I don't think you should go to the theater to see it, but if you're scrolling past it on HBO Max one day and there's nothing else on, yeah, you can throw it on. It'll kill 2 hours. You'll be fine. Anyway, guys, those are my thoughts and opinions on Shazam! Fury of the Gods. But what did you guys think of Shazam! Fury of the Gods? Did you see it yet? Did you like it more than me? Did you like it less than me? Comment down below. Let me know all your thoughts and opinions. I'd love to hear them. And if you guys didn't know, on this channel, we have a goal for the end of the year. We want to hit 2,500 subscribers. If you're new and you like talking movies, you're in the right spot. We do that a lot on this channel. Consider hitting that subscribe button. Consider hitting that like button on the way out. That also helps the channel out a lot. And thanks for watching the video, guys. I hope to talk to you guys again real soon.